Ruthless Compassion is a podcast that shows you how to become fiercely kind. I'm the host, Dr. Marcia Sirota, and in each episode, I get into it with experts and regular folks about the things that get in the way of what we want. Things like addiction and mental health, isolation and loneliness, difficult family and work relationships, and the importance of self-care. I want to help you overcome the obstacles to living your best life, and I want to inspire you to become a powerful kindness warrior. LaRae Quy was an undercover and counterintelligence FBI agent for 24 years. She exposed foreign spies and recruited them to work for the U.S. government. In that role, she developed the mental toughness to survive in environments of risk, uncertainty, and deception. As a former FBI agent, she speaks and consults today on how to develop mental toughness to create breakthroughs in business and in life. She offers no-nonsense practices learned from her years in the FBI to help others develop the mental strength in order to manage their emotions, behavior, and thinking so that they can set themselves up for success. Her clients are diverse, but they share the same desire to empower themselves so as to build the mental strength needed to keep moving forward toward their goals in life. Their shared belief is that they have the power within themselves to achieve greater personal and professional accomplishments. LaRae is the author of Mental Toughness for Women Leaders, 52 Tips to Recognize and Utilize Your Greatest Strengths, as well as Secrets of a Strong Mind. Discover more about LaRae Quy at www.laraequi.com. Welcome, LaRae Quy, to the Ruthless Compassion podcast.
It's so nice to be here, Marcia.
Well, I was very, very fascinated by your article about mental toughness and just your whole story, which is so interesting. So before we talk about mental toughness, I just wanted you to share with the listeners a little bit about your story, how you got to where you are today, and what you do.
Sure, absolutely. I probably have to start off where I was raised, which was on a remote cattle ranch in the middle of Wyoming. And so when I went to school, college, I thought, if I don't get away now, I never will. So I transferred to Arizona. And coming from Wyoming, a lot of snowdrifts, a lot of snow, and so I love the idea of Arizona environment. So I graduated with a degree in business and thought, I loved clothes and stuff. What woman doesn't, right? But I thought, well, the executive management program for a large department store, I had some openings. And I thought, oh, wow, that would be fantastic. I could, be a buyer and just have a wonderful life. I had all this envisioned for myself. And so I got into it, and I just realized I hated retail. There was just nothing I liked about retail. I was in it for 3 years, slogging my way through, and finally became a buyer. It was just not what I thought it would be. So I went back to school to get my master's degree. And when I was there at Arizona State, the FBI was on campus interviewing. And I had no idea what I really wanted to do. It's one of those things where I never really dreamed of being an FBI agent, but it sounded so intriguing. And so I talked with them. And they really liked my story. They liked my background. I did not grow up pampered, entitled, or spoiled. I had just the scrappiness and grit that they wanted for an FBI agent. So 6 months later, I was in the FBI Academy. And it was very tough getting through the academy. I had to really come to terms with, was this the job I really, really wanted? Because if it was, I was going to have to work harder for it than I'd ever worked for anything in my life. And I decided it was. So I spent 24 years as an FBI agent, primarily working counterintelligence and espionage. I also worked undercover for a great deal of that time as well. And then I spent the last 4 years of my career as the spokesperson for the FBI in Northern California. So I was eligible to retire. It wasn't mandatory retirement, but I was eligible. And after 24 years, I just thought, I need to try to do something else. There's more out there for myself. And I've always sort of wanted to write. And so I gave myself permission to just take a couple of years and just write, and which is what I did. And I wrote Secrets of a Strong Mind, which is my first book, and really started honing in on what is a strong mind? How do we develop the mental toughness we need to get through those tough times in life? And so now I've just finished I published a second book a couple of years ago called Mental Toughness for Women Leaders. And we'll shortly start working on revising the first book and then writing a third book. So writing is my first passion. I also do executive coaching and corporate training. So that's where I am now.
Wow, that's quite an interesting story. And I sort of zeroed in when you were saying how the FBI found your personality to be perfectly appropriate to their needs, and that scrappiness and that lack of over entitlement and spoiled attitude. And I was just wondering, is there some kind of upbringing that is more conducive to mental toughness? Were you just lucky that you were raised in a certain way, or can we all develop it?
Oh, we can all develop it. Mental toughness is not something we're born with. It's something we can all develop. I think my advantage, if I would use that term, actually, I don't even know if it was an advantage. I will say this. I think we all have those experiences inside of us if we will just excavate the significance of our own stories and our own experiences. And that is where too many people fall away. I mean, so people ask me, well, what are the components? What are the 4 things I should know about mental toughness? And I'll say, the first one is emotional competence. Most people say emotional intelligence. I'm going to use the word emotional competence because you can be intelligent about a lot of intelligent people out there. They're not really competent at anything. So when you are incompetent, that means you understand yourself. You understand what makes you tick. Not only that, you can focus away from yourself long enough to understand what makes other people tick. Because when you're dealing with people, you have to know, if you're mentally tough, you're going to be able to see where the holes are, where the discrepancies are, where you can find a way to get through a roadblock when that comes before you.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So that's the first element. What about the other 3?
Well, the other 3 would be resilience. It's very important to be resilient. And that's where you take responsibility for your own actions. No whining, no blaming others, no pointing fingers. It's bouncing back and bouncing through whatever obstacle is in your way. And a lot of that comes with just having the confidence that we need. I mean, when people ask me how to build confidence, I say, you know what? You have got to get out there and you have got to fail. You have got to get out there and see what it feels like to fail so that you know what it feels like to win. Because if you're always scared, if you're always afraid to take that next step, you're not going to have the confidence it takes to move beyond your current circumstances. And that's where most people are. They're just afraid to take that next step. They're afraid because they don't know what failure feels like. They're afraid that failure means that they have lost something. Anybody can make a mistake. We're only a failure if you don't learn from it. So if you're not smart enough to learn from your mistake, then yes, you are a failure. But if you take the time to look at what went wrong and modify so that next time it can be done right, you've won. You see yourself progressing. And so that's where I really feel that we all need to have a petri dish in our life somewhere. Things we're experimenting with, where we don't know the outcome, where we can, just sort of experiment. And so that we know how. The thing is, when you do that and you have that kind of mindset, you can predict your response. You respond rather than react. Because if you do it over and you know how you will respond when confronted with an obstacle or a surprise, then you know how you can predict how you're going to land on your feet when you're confronted with the unknown. Again, that's all about mental toughness. So resilience. When we talk about resilience, we're talking about facing fears, moving into discomfort zones, and moving through self-limiting beliefs, which I think women in particular sort of suffer from. So the second or third one would be willpower.
Ooh, I like that one.
The second component to mental toughness is willpower. It's being performance focused. It's not multitasking. It's managing your time wisely. It's developing the correct habits and pushing through limits. It's persistence, determination, and grit. So those are the elements that make up willpower. And then the fourth and final component is having that champion mindset, having the right attitude. It's being a positive thinker. It's being able to visualize. It's using self-talk, thought control. It's having a growth mindset and an attitude of gratitude. So but that's what the next book actually will be about. I just gave you my outline right there, which I'm excited about. It's sort of right on the tip of my, forefront in my mind right now, because these are the components that I have identified. Because people say mental toughness, what is it? Nobody really knows. There's not a compendium out there. There's not a real definition. It means a little of this, a little of that, whatever. And I want to put that in a sort of codify it in some way for people to better wrap their minds around.
For sure. And for somebody like you have been in the field for a quarter of a century. And so, you have life experience behind you to talk about.
Yes, which is, what I have, basically what the second half of life is going to be about is unpacking the first half, because it's going back and looking through. But I have the time now to reflect, and it does take a bit of reflection and focus to go back and understand the significance of some of those experiences and what I did learn and how it did change my attitude. Because my thinking is that we all go through these experiences, and it's up to us. I mean, I know people right now, when something goes wrong, all they do is blame somebody else. That is not the person I'm talking to here, because I'm talking to people at your audience, and the people that are wanting to listen to me are people who accept responsibility for their own actions. They're not whining and complaining. They're not a bunch of little buttercups out there expecting special privileges. They're accepting who they are and saying, okay, you know what? Wherever I am in life, I want to take it to the next level. I'm not satisfied with this place I am right now, or I know that there is more for me, and I know how I want to get there, and that's when you need mental toughness.
I absolutely agree with you. One question that comes to my mind a lot is especially because I deal with a lot of patients who've had significant traumas in their life, and I'm sure working with the FBI, you've encountered traumatic events personally and around you. And when somebody encounters a really seriously traumatic or distressing event in their life, and it just throws them for a loop, and they become very overwhelmed and despondent, how can they use mental toughness? What would they do to try to pull themselves back up into feeling more stable?
Absolutely. And I understand a lot of post-trauma, it's very serious, and they do need to work through it. And thank God for people like you, Marcia, who are willing and able to give them that helping hand, because they need it. And good, congratulations. I would think that you must feel very gratified in your career and what you do. But so and I'm not speaking as an expert, but I will speak from my experience of working with law enforcement. When I first 3 weeks of the FBI Academy, they made us all stay at the academy. We couldn't leave for 3 weeks. We had to live with each other for 24 hours a day, every day for 3 weeks. And the reason for that was to build community. It was to create our tribe. Because one thing that, and I'm sure you understand this far better than I do, but psychologists are really starting to understand the importance of connectedness and the feeling of being connected to others, the importance of that, and our tribe, so to speak. And so while tribalism can get rampant one way or another, the basic idea of having people around you that care if you don't come home, they care how you show up when you do come home. And when people have that kind of community, it allows them it gives them what they need in order that those shoulders, not just one shoulder, but many shoulders, to get them through that phase that you're talking about. And unfortunately for a lot of us, we don't have that blood family connectiveness that maybe years and years ago we had, the clan, where everybody was related and your family stuck together. And now my family is the other side of the country. I don't have any family where I live. I have to create my own community, and I need a tight community, because when times get tough, you need that. When the Bureau, we have a community, the FBI, I just call it the Bureau, but we're whether it's a squad or the agents we hang with, it's so important to help us get through tough times.
I really appreciate that you said that, because you could have said, think the right thoughts or this or that, but you're talking really about our connectedness. And I absolutely agree with you. I think people underestimate how important it is to have that kind of community and support, especially when we're going through challenging times.
Well, absolutely, Marcia. And the thing I just tell everybody is that you have to work at relationships. I mean, you can't have close, trusting relationships by just casually spending time with people. It takes work. It takes time. You are investing in other people, and vice versa. And everybody needs accountability in some way, because when something does go wrong, and you cannot predict whether a marriage goes bad, whether it's an abusive situation, or someone dies. There are so many surprises in life that we just can't predict, that we need people that we trust, that we could say, this is a person I trust my life with, literally, and that connectiveness is what gets us through.
For sure. Well, I have a question. Now, of course, answer as much or as little as you're comfortable with, but I just was wondering if you had any experiences in your life in which, either personal or professional, that you feel comfortable sharing, in which you found that mental toughness really made all the difference for you.
Well, absolutely. Why don't I give you an example from my work?
Okay.
And I will use an example from the FBI Academy. So, my background was as a buyer at a fancy retail store. So the first day at the Academy, we all stood around. There were 40 of us in my class. That was my tribe. 6 women, I believe, were in my class with me. And we all stood up and just talked about what we'd done. And, a guy over here had been with Special Forces in North Africa and wiped out terrorists. And some other guy stood up and was had been a state trooper in New Jersey and had survived a shootout. And I stood up and said I was a buyer at a fancy department store, and everybody just turned to get a look at the fluff ball that had accidentally gotten into the FBI Academy. So it's not easy for me.
Oh my.
I just don't look like your typical FBI agent. Not that I'm female, that's not really it, but I just don't look like one, and I don't necessarily sound like one. So I did not know, but one of the requirements to get out of the academy was to jump off a 25-foot diving board into a pool of water holding an M16 and then swim to the other side, still holding the weapon. Well, I had 2 problems. First of all, I am scared of heights. And second of all, I have never learned to swim. Even today, I'm not a really strong swimmer, but I had never learned I did not know how to swim when I was in the academy. So I'm up there, but this is something I had to do if I was going to graduate. It was a requirement. So this is when I started realizing what mental toughness really is, and how you can control your thinking. Because mental toughness is managing your emotions, your thoughts, and your behavior in ways that will set you up for success.
Mm-hmm.
My emotions right now were panicking. The little limbic brain system back there was going bananas because I was just certain I was going to die of drowning if I jumped. And I watched as even experienced swimmers from that height with a weapon, came up gagging and then trying to, swimming to the other side of the pool. So I visualized how I would try to bounce back up from the bottom and crawl to the other side of the pool. But the thing that really got me through was the positive thinking. And I didn't really know it at the time, but now I do, is that negative thoughts are like Teflon. They're like Velcro. They really stick. It's hard to get rid of a negative thought, because negative thoughts are what keep us safe. Back in the caveman days, it kept from getting lunch instead of being lunch out there. So I realized that negative thought was strong. Positive thoughts are like Teflon. They easily slide away. And while they're nice, the brain doesn't respond to them as readily because they're not a threat to our survival. So I'm up there thinking, how can I be positive about this? First of all, they gave me a vest. So I thought, okay, at least I'll have a vest. That was one thing. I thought, okay, I have my classmates around me and my instructors, they won't let me die because they're all swimmers, right? That was the second thing. I said, but they won't want the lawsuit that my parents would lodge against them if I died here. That was 4, and then 3. And then I thought, you know what? I had never heard of an agent drowning in this exercise. And that would be the kind of thing, I would know. So I'm thinking, okay, I'm going to make it. It was everything I could do to take that step off the diving board. But I also knew that if I didn't take that step, my dream of becoming an FBI agent would die. So I did. And I bounced back up and had a bunch of water in my nose, and it was basically still alive, gasped for air, and basically did crawl over to the other side of the pool with the weapon, though. That was so important for the exercise. So that was probably my biggest aha moment of like, okay, the way I am in control of my emotions. If I can control my emotions, I can control my thinking, and I can control my behavior.
And I'm sure that stood you in very good stead when you were doing counterintelligence and undercover, because you had to really keep your cool even under probably very high pressure situations.
Well, absolutely. And sometimes years of investigation come to a single moment of when you are face to face with this individual that you believe to be a spy. And my job was to recruit them, or try to recruit them to work for the United States government. So it all came to one single moment, face to face. This is who I am. Can I have a conversation with you? And there's a tremendous amount of pressure on that single moment. So being able to keep your cool, not only face to face with a subject of an investigation, but with people in general, just in general, being able to script out a strategy that would work, being able to stick to that, being able to think it through in the moment, because a lot of times you can't plan. I mean, you can't plan how an arrest is going to go. You don't just assume that it's going to go okay. I mean, you plan for everything that can go wrong as well as everything that can go right. So there's a lot of contingencies that go into. And that's the same way with life, though. I mean, we think one thing, we plan, and it's like, oh, wow, a lot of things go wrong, right?
Mm-hmm. It sounds like maybe 5 on your list would be flexibility.
Yes. Well, yes. Well, flexibility is very important, and actually, it's part of being resilient.
Right.
Yeah, that's absolutely right.
Yeah. So you talked a little bit about taking responsibility. How do you connect taking personal responsibility with mental toughness?
Well, the thing is, we are who we are, and we can kind of pretend, we can fudge a little along the way for a while, but not through life. There's going to come a point of which you're going to have to stand in the mirror and see who you are, and be comfortable with that. And if you're not comfortable, be honest enough to identify what you need to change in order to be the person you want to be. That takes mental toughness, because if you're not willing to do what you have to do in order to get what you really want, then you don't have mental toughness. I mean, and then you're sort of like this person who's in a rut. And I say the only difference between a rut and a coffin are the dimensions. Do any of us want to be there? I think not. At least I don't. So at some point, you either have to take responsibility for who you are, or you forfeit. You just forfeit, and you are whoever somebody else tells you should be. And if that is how you want to live your life, that is your choice.
I like that a lot.
Yeah, I don't think many of us do want to be like that.
For sure. I have another question actually that came up for me. You talk a lot about toughness, but sometimes I think people, they mistake toughness for hardness, and they think that they have to be hard or hardened or cynical. How do you avoid being hard or hardened while remaining tough?
Well, so often when people ask me, I need to be mentally tough. They think it's like bulldozing their way through obstacles. And that may work in football, but it does not work in life. So being tough and being hard, there's a tremendous difference. And I look at hardness. This is why mindset is so important and why it's a component of mental toughness, because hardened is a mind that closes. It's a mind that closes down. It has decided this is right, and that's it. I mean, I'm going to be hard in this. This is the only way of looking at something. Mm-hmm. And to be real truthful on the political scale, you get people on both sides who are hardened. They are not open to anything. They are extremists on either side. I'm not talking about terrorist extremists. I'm just talking about the political football we're having here in the United States, where it's just like, this is right, you're wrong, and the other side says the same thing. They're hardened. Mental toughness is being able to have a mindset that is curious. It's a growth mindset. It's not a fixed mindset. Carol Dweck has written a wonderful book on this, or it's done a lot of research on it. And it is just about having a mindset that is always, that instead of said, this is the way it is, or this is what I can do, it's an attitude that says, I don't know if I can do this, but I'll never know unless I try. So it's open. And to be truthful, the whole idea of having tight communities, having tribe, having an attitude of thankfulness, of being able to visualize, being a positive thinker, reframing obstacles in a way that instead of I can't do this, it's more like let's see how I can do this. It's simply reframing. So so I don't know if I'm answering your question, but hardened people don't have that kind of mindset.
Yes, it's back to our discussion about flexibility, and yes. It's this inflexible rigidity as opposed to being open, being curious, and being willing to consider different possibilities or different options, I think is what you're saying.
That is exactly what I'm saying. And to do that, though, you have to be willing to accept the fact that you may not have all the answers. You may be wrong about something. You may need to move out of your current place or your current situation. So it makes you invulnerable in some respects, because it could be opening you up to something new and different. And so many people do not want to move from where they are now, not because they're so incredibly happy where they are now. They're so incredibly fearful of what will happen if they move. And that's a very different point of view.
So what I'm really hearing you say, and I'm just loving it, you should see the smile on my face. What I'm hearing you say is that people are so fearful of being vulnerable and possibly being wrong or being challenged that they will hold on tightly to their mindset, to their beliefs, to their feelings, to their attitudes, even if they cause them unhappiness, rather than consider other options, other possibilities, and that prevents them from being mentally tough. So then they're going to suffer more as well. So this way of protecting themselves by being rigid against vulnerability actually prevents them from being tough, and so they are more vulnerable ultimately. So this avoidance of vulnerability makes them more vulnerable.
Exactly. It's just a vicious circle.
It
really is. And if people will just open up their thinking enough to even consider, it doesn't matter where they are, just wherever they are, to just look around them and to just see where life is really fulfilling them and really bringing them the promise and joy that they want, and identify that there's no job in the world, I don't think, that doesn't have some benefit. It may not be your dream job, but identify where it is in your life, in your job, that does bring you joy. Even if it's only 10% of your job, focus on that 10% and focus on ways you can make that 10% grow to 20 or 30 or 40. And that may mean you have to change jobs. That may mean you pursue something different. But if we all challenge ourselves in that way, instead of just looking at it as like a blanket, I hate my job, I hate my life, or whatever, look at ways you can change it. Look at where it is bringing you joy and then move in that direction.
That sounds so wonderful. Well, we're going to wrap up soon. So I was just wondering, what are you doing these days that the listeners might be interested in exploring?
Oh, I love to have them visit my website, and that is my name. It's www.LaRaeQuy.com. Just take a look there. There's a mental toughness assessment there that's free. And so see how you do. See how you do. It rates emotions, thoughts, and behaviors. Also, I'd love to see you on Twitter or Facebook or LinkedIn. My name is my handle. And also, I'm coming out with a training course on how to build confidence. And so that will be available online, and it will be available for people to at their pace. It'll just be an online training course. So I'd love for them to check that out. That'll be coming in the next couple of weeks. And then my books, Secrets of a Strong Mind. I will be revising that, and then which I'm really excited about. There's going to be an accompanying workbook that goes with it, and then 52 tips for women leaders. It's based pretty much in neuroscience and social psychology. So, but it's also for men. It's not just for women. It's for men as well.
Those sound really amazing. And just to finish up, do you have a call to action for the listeners today?
Well, I would say this. I would say that anybody can be mentally tough. You need to work at it. We all need to work at it. But mental toughness is believing that you will prevail in your circumstances rather than believing your circumstances will change. So find where you are, wherever you are, and look at ways that you can keep moving forward and move toward that next step or that next challenge for you in life.
Well, that's a wonderful note to end on, and I want to thank you very much for coming and chatting with me today, LaRae. It's really been a pleasure.
Thank you for inviting me. It's been wonderful.
All the best.
Thank you.
That was the inspiring LaRae Quy, and I'm Dr. Marcia Sirota. If you like this podcast, please subscribe and review it on iTunes. You can also sponsor me on Patreon at patreon.com/Dr. Marcia Sirota. And please sign up for my free monthly newsletter at marciasirotamd.com.